Welcome to Solving Time Value Money Problems with the BA2 Plus Financial Calculator. In this video, I'm going to introduce the calculator, tell you a little bit about its basic features, and introduce the 4 videos that we have in this series, all of which are designed to help you get the most out of this powerful little device. But first, why the BA2? I mean, don't you have a perfectly good statistical calculator? And you might wonder, do you need another one at this point in your career? Well, I'll tell you why we like this one so much. It's because it covers so much ground. For example, there's 4 time value of money categories. There's also 4 different ways that cash flows can be configured. That's going to give us 16 potential time value future cash flow configurations, each of which has to be solved with its own unique equation, if it can be solved at all. And you can see that there's 4 cases here that can only be solved by considerable trial and error. And that's the internal rate of return has 3 of them, and that's probably the most important category for all. Well, how does BA2 handle this? Think of the basic time value equation, and if you have 3 values for 4 of the variables, you can find the 4th. That's the way the calculator is designed. And if you find 3 values for any of the 4 variables on any of the equations in this page, then the calculator will come up with an answer. If the calculator has to do multiple trial and error, it will take care of that for you, and it will do it in an instant. It is a very powerful calculator. So let's talk about some features that the calculator has. And when I turn the calculator on, one thing I like to do is double tap that C key at the bottom. That clears the entry, and it clears whatever might be hanging around in residuals. And believe me, your calculator will have a residual hanging around whenever you shut the calculator off. So when you turn it on, you want to clear it. Calculator has 9 different memories. That's probably 8 more than you're ever going to need. But at any rate, that gives you an idea of the complexity of the calculator. And you handle the memories in the standard manner. Here you can see I've stored 7.2 in the 3rd memory. And then if I want to add 2.8 to it, I can recall it. There's my answer. So very useful. Just remember which memory you've stored some of your numbers in when you do it. But the power to the calculator is really with the worksheets. And this is where we want to focus our attention. Now, there's 12 worksheets altogether, but we only have time for 3 of them, and we're going to cover them in the next 4 videos, and you'll see how in a few minutes. There's a useful back arrow key, which helps if you make an entry error, but if you combine that with the scrolling keys, what you can do after you populate your worksheet with values, you can scroll up and scroll down. You can insert a number if you forgot it, or you can delete a number if you need it, or you can edit. The combination of 3 keys is very powerful. But probably the 2 keys I like the best are the second reset enter. Okay, the reset enter resets the calculator to its original factory settings. So the reason I like that is occasionally I'll be working a complex problem. I just can't get the right answer, so I hit second reset enter and I start over, and must have been a residual in there somewhere. That's cleared out. It works this time. Or if somebody else has used the calculator before you, say maybe your roommate borrowed it for a while, they're always sitting there trying to make it work. Well, time comes back to you. Who knows how it's been programmed or what's happened to it. So if you hit second reset enter, it's going to be cleared back to the factory settings just like it came out of the box. Now, the calculator has a very generous 10-digit display, and we might want to use 4 decimals. So if we do, the first key we're going to hit is the second key. Now, whenever we have a series of keys to hit, we hit them in a series. We hit them sequentially. We never hit keys simultaneously with the BA2. So after we hit the second key, next we hit the format key. Now the decimal key doubles as the format key. And then we hit the 4 because you want 4 numbers, or 4 decimals. And then you hit enter, and it saves it. So your display changes to 4 decimals. Or if you're in the finance mode, you want to work with 2 decimals, very easy. Hit second, format, 2 because you want 2 decimal places, and then enter and you're done. But the key to understanding the real power of the calculator is to understand the worksheets. And it almost seems as if the calculator is really 3 different worksheets, or 3 different calculators, because when you work with these 3 different worksheets. For example, we'll start with the first one, which is the time value money worksheet. Now, if you're not familiar with the calculator, you probably want to start there, because that's for single sums and annuities, and it's the most general and probably the most useful one for you. It also has its own set of dedicated time value keys. There they are. They're the white keys going across the front of the calculator. And the calculator also has an odd design quirk that the engineers at Texas Instruments left for us, because they decided that whenever we had an investment, we would take money out of our pocket. Hence, we would have a negative cash flow, and then eventually that money would come back in as a positive cash flow. So they decided to design every single problem in the TVM worksheet as having a negative sign, even though that negative sign is mathematically meaningless. And believe me, it is. So we're going to have to learn how to both use and at the same time ignore a mathematically meaningless minus sign. But you'll get used to that. I'm going to show you 2 shortcuts that'll speed things up, and we're going to wrap everything up for single sums with the first video. We're going to go to annuities in the second video, and believe it or not, there's more things to learn in that, so we couldn't combine the 2 at all. There's just too much to cover. Then we get to the next worksheet that we're going to cover, which is the cash flow worksheet. Now that's designed for multiple uneven sums, and basically it's designed for internal rates of return and net present value, and it has its own dedicated keys. You'll see them right here, and those are the black keys. You don't use the white keys this time, you use the black keys. And we only have a worksheet that has 24 entries in it, but we can do a lot with that, and if we use some annuities in there, we can extend that, and I'll show you how when we get there. Now this time around, minus signs do count. That's why I say every worksheet seems to be different than the previous one, so minus signs count in this. We want to pay attention to that. We can also do annuities and bond problems with the cash flow worksheet. Very powerful worksheet. More powerful than the TVM worksheet, actually. And we're going to wrap everything up here with the third video. Then we get to the last one, which is the bond worksheet. And this one is designed only for bonds. Now, what makes this one so unique is that it does away with the generic 30-day month and uses a real-time calendar instead. So we'll end up, if we say we want to start today, we'll put in the month, day, year formula, and then pick a date sometime in the future. And it doesn't have to be an even number of days in there. Whatever time span you pick, it's going to give you a bond yield or find the present value of that bond. That again is a very powerful worksheet, but it's also a very different one. And I would say that when you compute bond values with the bond worksheet, you're going to get different answers than if you compute bond values with the cash flow worksheet. So that's something that we address later on. I don't know if you can say it has its own dedicated cash flow, time value key, because I don't think it does. You have to hit second and then the 9 key, which takes you to the bond worksheet, and then you call it up, then you clear it, then you can use it. That's as dedicated as it gets. But nevertheless, a very powerful tool, and it's very useful. Now that takes us to the end of what I want to say in the introduction. That is, unless you happen to be an accounting or a finance major and you plan to take one of these industry-specific exams sometime in the future. Because if you do, you want to know that the only calculator that you can bring to the exam is the BA2. So this is the time to get the BA2, become familiar with it, and be able to use it when you get to one of those industry-specific exams. Don't try to borrow one from somebody else and learn it the night before. It might defeat you. We don't know. But with that said, I will see you in the next video.